Since 2017, the Italian Wine Podcast has exploded and expects to hit 6 million listens by the end of July 2023. We're celebrating this success by recognizing those who have shared the journey with us and giving them the opportunity to contribute to the ongoing success of the shows. By buying a paper copy of the Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0 or making a donation to help the ongoing running costs, members of the international Italian wine community will be given the chance to nominate future guests and even enter a prize draw to have lunch with Stevie Kim and Professor Attilio Scienza. To find out more, visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Chin chin!
Welcome to the Italian Wine Podcast. I'm Cynthia Chaplin, and this is Voices. Every Wednesday, I will be sharing conversations with international wine industry professionals, discussing issues in diversity, equity, and inclusion through their personal experiences working in the field of wine. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate our show wherever you get your pods. Welcome to Voices. This is me, Cynthia Chaplin, and today I am so happy to have Helen McGinn, the author of The Knackered Mother's Wine Guide, with me on Voices. Helen's a former wine buyer for a supermarket, and she became a wine sensation in England 10 years ago when she published her book. And she has since become an international wine judge and drinks writer for the Daily Mail and for Waitrose supermarket chain, as well as an award-winning wine blogger and a regular TV personality. She's been on BBC Saturday and ITV This Morning, and always lots of fun. So thank you so much, Helen, for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to talk to you.
Well, it's fun for me because obviously I'm American, but I haven't lived in the States for 32 years, and I spent a good 16 years in the UK. So your title, The Knackered Mother, really resonated with me. For our listeners who don't know what knackered means, it's like exhausted, worn out, completely beyond.
Yes.
And that just appealed to me so much. So it's really fun to have you on. It's such a fabulous word for, overwhelmed, all those things that require wine. I would not have survived the years when my children were growing up without wine. So I completely get it. And I've been that knackered mother myself for longer than I care to share. I'm not going to say on the air how long. So how did you go from being a wine buyer, fairly serious job for a supermarket, to an award-winning and much-loved, completely witty and wonderful wine author and personality in the UK? What was your inspiration for the first book, The Knackered Mother's Wine Guide?
So the inspiration for the first book was very much having spent 10 years as a supermarket wine buyer. I had basically had this fantastic job where I got to travel the world and work with lots of brilliant people on finding wines, sourcing wines to put on the supermarket shelves. And over that time, I had become, I guess, probably like the go-to for my friends on a Friday afternoon who would all ring or message me in a panic from the wine aisle, usually, early on a Friday evening, asking me what to buy, what they should buy.
Oh, completely. I still have friends who send me photographs of the grocery store aisle. Which one?
Yeah. And do you know what? It was a lot easier to manage before WhatsApp came along. And once WhatsApp came, now you get pictures, you get voice notes, you get everything. But basically, I think that's where I came from, is I just thought what I want to do is have a platform that people can go to and find whatever wines I'm recommending that week. So it actually started as a blog, and that started about 14 years ago. And I just decided that I would put up a couple of wines every week, wines that I knew were really good value, especially because, being a supermarket buyer myself and still now, I firmly believe you don't have to spend a lot of money to find good wines. I mean, obviously it's a real treat if you do, but for your kind of everyday wines, there's so much choice out there. It's just knowing where to look. So it started as a blog, and then that blog, it was stumbled across by an editor from a publishing house, and it was interesting because, she was just at the time blogging. This was pre-Instagram. So blogs, there were a few blogs that were starting to be turned into books.
I feel like there's only me and you left in the world who remembers that.
Yes, but you know what I loved? I still do. I still update my blog because it's just like having your own little space on the internet that you can do whatever you want with. And I love the idea of just writing and putting my words down. I love writing about wine. So that's where it started as a blog. And then this editor came across it and she said, please, can you just turn this into a wine guide? Because I guess what I've been doing all along is whenever I was recommending wines, I was trying to explain to people, I would always try to explain to people why they might like this wine. So not just what it tasted like, but what food to have it with, what sort of occasion it would suit. And that, I guess that was the idea, is I just wanted people to have the confidence to know enough that instead of feeling overwhelmed when they went into a supermarket, they sort of had enough knowledge to start navigating their way around it. That's what I wanted to do with the guide.
I love that idea. It's such a great thing. I mean, we've all been there. You walk into a supermarket, there are 4,000 bottles of wine.
Yeah.
Sort of 8 shelves high. Some of them taller than your head. Some of them that you can't bend down, particularly if you're pregnant or elderly. They're at the bottom, and you think, oh my God. But it's interesting that how open you were to supermarket wine, and I think. It doesn't get enough attention. These days, we're giving it a little bit more love, and I think we should carry on doing that because the vast majority of people don't go to a very stuffy wine shop to buy their wine. It's an impulse purchase. It's, a Friday night on the way home from work. We've all been faced with those huge shelves, and having something that can kind of point you in the right direction is super helpful.
Yeah, exactly that. And I would say that, I'm lucky enough to have a really lovely independent wine shop near me. And I love nothing more than going to choose wine in that shop because I am like a kid in a sweet shop. And the couple that run it, they know the sort of things that I like. And so then you end up having a really lovely conversation around it as well. You don't get any of that in a supermarket. That's the thing. You are basically just left there on your own, staring at all these bottles. So that's the difference. I think knowing that, if you have got an independent near you, go and support them by all means. But I'm also very aware as a working mother that it's those 1 or 2 bottles that get thrown in the basket or the trolley at the end of the week. And that's who I'm really writing for. And hopefully, it is quite amazing that the blog still is going and the book is still updated and still in print, which I just absolutely love. We just update it every couple of years. And I wanted to write a book with longevity as well. So it doesn't have like individual wines in there because that you'd have to update it every year. It really is just basically the book that has all the building blocks for you to start to understand and trust your own palate, and just help you know that if you say you like these 5 grapes, well then here are 10 more to go and try that are not the same but similar. So you're not going to pick something that is so not your taste, but it's similar but different to the style that you like.
Are you enjoying this podcast? Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel, Mama Jumbo Shrimp, for fascinating videos covering Stevie Kim and her travels across Italy and beyond, meeting winemakers, eating local foods, and taking in the scenery. Now, back to the show.
It's so true. I think a lot of wine guides, where we're giving points and ratings and tasting notes and things like that, are not really suited for, the Friday afternoon, after the gymkhana mother who just needs something in her basket to get her between bath time and tea time. I think it's lovely that your perception of that market was so personal and also not exclusive, not focusing on wines that have been scored or rated, but just really wines that are accessible, that are affordable, that are there in most supermarkets, and that people can look at without feeling judged or unsure. So much of what we do in wine keeps people out, and I think your approach to a wine guide really opened the door to a significant market. And when we look at it now, these are women who have money, they've got expendable income, and there's no more judgment about having that wine at book club kind of thing. So really, really interesting. Can I ask you just quickly, how did you get into wine yourself?
So that was a case of me stumbling into it when I was at university. I joined a wine society with some friends because it was the cheapest way for us to have 4 half glasses of wine on a Thursday.
I completely get that. Yep.
So that is genuinely the reason why we joined. But what I found was that over time, we'd go to these tastings once a month, and they were such good fun. But also, I very quickly found myself just wanting to know more. I was so struck by the idea that you could take a grape and plant it in different places, and it would turn out, so different depending on where it was made and how it was made and who made it. And the other thing that really, really struck me was that the people who came to talk to us about it, because we would have people down from like wine importers or specialist people from specialist wine shops, and they were always so in love with what they did. They just seemed to have this incredible love for the product, and they got to travel and they got to spend time with really interesting people. And I think that's when I thought, okay, that's what I want to do. But you can't just, I tried, I wrote to some wine companies and asked them if I could go and talk to them and maybe work for them. But these were old traditional London companies that had like 1 or 2 buyers, and the succession plan meant you'd have to wait about 40 years until you might get the shot at it. So
and wear a tie every day.
Yeah, exactly. So it was actually my dad who said, "Well, listen, why don't you apply to a supermarket? Because I was on my way to getting a degree, to get on the graduate scheme, get your foot in the door." Which is what I did. So I got a place on a graduate scheme with Tesco, a very big supermarket here in the UK. And once I was there, I had to do a year's training doing everything but wine to basically learn how to be a buyer. So you have to learn how to negotiate and merchandise and essentially just learn to think about every single decision you make as a buyer. You have to do it from a customer's point of view. And then once you've done that, then I went and knocked on the head of the wine department's door and said, "I'm still here." And you said if I was still here in a year, you'd give me a job. And I think he was quite surprised to see that I was still there. But he did, true to his word, give me a go. And I was there for, 10 years.
It's amazing. I mean, it's a great story of being, kind of ballsy and nervy and really sticking to your guns and what you love. And I'm so happy that it was your dad who encouraged you to do that. That's a really great story. We're very kindred spirits. I found wine in university too, and never thought that it could be a career. So it's great that has changed for young women coming after us. But I have to ask, when you wrote the book, coming off the back of your blog, and a publisher reached out to you, when you wrote the Knackered Mother's Wine Guide, and did you expect it to become successful? It was it was a massive sensation.
I still honestly now, the book was 10 years old last year, I think, or maybe it was earlier this year. I can't remember. I think it was earlier this year. 10 years old since we published it, and I am still now great friends with the editor who we did it with, because it was such a fun project, and we've just always carried on since then. Meeting up for catch ups over a glass of wine, and the whole experience was so magical. I'd never written a book. There certainly wasn't anything around like it at the time, because it was very much geared for for people like me, for women who loved their wine, and it was just an extraordinary experience. I had no idea that night that I started this little blog on a whim, because basically I was a bit crazy with three small kids and I needed to do something other than just be a mum. And starting that blog, the fact that it would lead to a book, which has then led to television and all the other things I've done. I mean, it really has given me a whole second career. It's extraordinary.
I'm imagining that you've had a lot of personal feedback too. Have women reached out to you, people who this resonated with, and what has that kind of feedback meant to you?
Do you know, it means everything. It's everything, because funnily enough, as a supermarket buyer, the one thing you do spend a lot of time doing that people probably don't realize, well, one is spreadsheets. That's a nightmare. But the other
no fun at all.
No fun at all. But the other is customer focus groups. And so you would spend a lot of time sitting and listening to customers talking about why they buy certain wines and what labels they like and all that kind of thing. And given that I'd spent a decade doing that, what amazed me when I started the blog was the fact that the feedback is instant and personal. And so I learned more about what people really want in wine within, 6 months of doing the blog than I had in 10 years of being a supermarket wine buyer. It was extraordinary, because I was having daily, and still do, I have daily conversations with readers who are they will ask me questions about wine, or they want to buy wine for a special occasion, or they've got stuck in a bit of a wine rut, so what else should they try? And honestly, I get so much joy out of that. I can't tell you. I absolutely love it, because the last thing I want wine to be for anybody is intimidating. And I think, as you've quite rightly pointed out, the audience that we're talking to now are women who are, they've had their kind of starter run in wine. So they're at the stage now where they kind of know what they like, but they definitely want to know a bit more about it. Not everything, not in a kind of, geeky, buy me a big old wine manual way. They're just like, I'm really interested. I want to drink nice wine. I'm beyond the point of being able to sit there and just drink any old thing, because, as you get older, wine hurts. You just want to make the wine that you do drink, you just want to make it count, and you want it to be something that is really delicious and that you love, and not something that's just a bit mediocre.
And there's some fun, I think people who aren't familiar with sort of what goes on with women who are mothers of young children in the UK, you want to give your friends something new too, that the personal time that you carve out of your life is really precious. When you've got, a young family, you're very busy, and carving out an hour or two to spend time with your friends, you want to make sure that you're giving them something new and fun, that they can afford. Nobody has a pocket full of cash these days, especially not when you've got young family. And, not relying on the same old go-to wine every single week, being able to come up with, a bottle of something, oh, Helen McGinn said this could be cool, and having that fun moment. That's another element to, I think, how women choose wine.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, as well, with Instagram now, Twitter a bit, but I tend not to do that so much, really. I'll just pop on there to see if anyone's asked a question, because I always try and get back to them. But Instagram is wonderful for me, because again, it gives me that way of having an ongoing conversation with people about wine, and I love it. And sometimes, when I answer now, people will say, "Oh gosh, I didn't expect to hear back." If somebody has taken the trouble to spend, a few minutes asking me a question, if I can help them, I will, because that I find that I'm really grateful that they have thought, I'm just going to ask Helen what she thinks about this. I think that's a lovely thing.
And I think that is really cutting to the heart of everything you do. You are informing, you're spreading the love, you're making it accessible, and in a way that's really non-judgmental, so open. It's great. And with everything you've done, you've racked up some really cool awards as well, including Fortnum and Mason's Online Drink Writer of the Year, and Red Magazine's Best Blogger, and Brit Mum's Outstanding Blog Award. These are big things. These are, pretty serious. And I'm guessing that most of your audience is, women, but it won't be everybody. So I'm wondering, how often do you hear from men, young men, old men? Does your audience engage and reach out more than just knackered mums? Is there some more happening with what's going on with your audience?
Well, there are a few brave men out there who put their hand up and say, I want to ask a question, but I'm sure it won't surprise you to know that that women are much more relaxed about saying, can I ask you this? Because you might know the answer and I don't.
So true.
I've worked in, in their defense, I've worked in the wine industry for, since 95, I think, 1995 is when I started as a wine buyer. And, so it's coming up to 30 years, and it is still quite a male, well, it certainly was a very male-dominated industry. Now there are lots more women around.
Oh, I work in Italy. Believe me, it's still pretty male-dominated.
Yeah. But I have worked with some really, really wonderful people, both men and women, who have been real role models to me. It is one of those industries that is very collaborative and supportive, and I'm thrilled to see it changing as it is here, I have to say. But yeah, I can imagine where you are.
Well, and we're all sort of looking at the future. We know that young people are drinking less wine, and it's important to get them into the fold. Show people that it's not this exclusive, very, very old, dusty, crusty bunch of people. And I'm just wondering, I know that you're on TV, you've been writing columns, you've been writing books, all of these things. What inspires you? How are you keeping this fresh? As you said, you've been doing this, you've been in the wine business now for 30 years, but you've been doing Knackered Mother, and you've developed this amazing persona. People are engaging with you on a private level, which is so heartwarming. I know how it feels for me when people reach out to me on a personal level. So how are you keeping it fresh? What are you doing to create new things as a writer and a TV personality?
Well, what I did was, because I did get to the stage where, my career had sort of gone in 10-year slots. So I'd had the 10 years as a wine buyer. I then did roughly 10 years when I came out of that, when I was bringing up the children. I was still working in wine, but I moved to a part-time role more in wine marketing, and it was and then had my own consultancy for a while where I worked with lots of different wine brands, as an ex-supermarket buyer. But alongside that, that's where I started the wine blog, so that gave me a slightly different focus. But then it got to the point where, because I was then writing about wine, pretty much all the time, I wanted to keep writing, but I knew to keep it fresh, I had to give myself, my brain, maybe something else to think about. And so that's when I decided to write fiction as well, because I thought, what I'll do is I'll write some fiction. I'll try and write some fiction, I should say, because I didn't know if I'd be able to do it. But I thought I'll set it in a place where there's wine, and I will try and weave wine into the story, so that even if you're reading one of my fiction books, even if you don't realize it, you will maybe learn about a wine you haven't heard about, or read about a wine that sounds so delicious it'll make you want to go and try it. So that was why about 5 years ago I started writing my first fiction book, and that then spawned again. I mean, I was very lucky to have a new editor who found me, who said, actually, I think you can do more than just one. And so I'm currently working on my fourth fiction books. I've done one a year for the last 3 years, and I'm just working on number 4 at the moment. And I think having giving myself that challenge to write fiction, and then we're talking about women's commercial fiction. I'm talking about the books that I thought that my readers from the Knackered Mothers Wine Club might, given that I think I am them and they are me, I wrote the book that I thought some of them might want to take on holiday and read. In between, they might have another far more, erudite book on the go, but this is the one I want on the sun lounger. So that's the fiction I decided to write, and there is a lot of wine in it.
No, well, I've read the first 3, so I'm very excited to hear there's a 4th one coming. And it's, yes, definitely there is an element of I hide it in my bag and put my, more scholarly, New Wines of Etna book on top of it. But they, as you said, they're women centric. They're very approachable, and they do have quite a lot of a wine focus. So a very great late night guilty pleasure. And Helen, no word of a lie. They're well written. They're not, trashy Hallmark sort of things. They're well written, and there is a lot of Italian wine venues in there and wines themselves. So that really appealed to me. But it's interesting how you made that transition from Knackered Mother's Wine Guide and what you're doing every day, as a very nonfiction wine forward person on TV, on your shows, in your columns, into this fictional world that I think again lends itself to women whose lives are busy and full. They don't have a lot of free time. So being able to escape, for 20 minutes when you're in the bath, it doesn't have to be holiday. It can be anything. To take a book that still has some wine info in there, still has some, nice insights into women's mentality as thing. It's very, very interesting what you've managed to accomplish. And I'm very excited that you're coming out with a fourth one. So I'm going to look forward to that. But
oh, well, I'm so thrilled you've read that. That's so lovely to hear. Thank you so much. And I'm honestly, that makes me so happy to hear that you think that, well, that they work for you, because I mean, I love writing them, and I would keep setting them, because for the first three, the first one set in Rome, the second in Venice, the third in Florence. So the fourth, I have left Italy for the fourth, but I think I'm going to have to come back to Italy, because I would really like to write one set around the Amalfi, and I've never been. So if anything, I want to do it so I've got an excuse to go on and research.
Oh, exciting! I think we might have to come up with some sort of trip. I'll come and take you to my favorite top places. But I mean, since the original book and the original blog, things have really changed so much. So what's going on besides the new fiction book? I know you're a wine educator. You started an expert guide to enjoying wine. You do some online things. This is serious stuff. Not that fiction isn't, but this is really putting yourself out there as an educator. So what prompted that?
I had always thought about the idea of doing a visual version of the Knackered Mother's Wine Guide, but I hadn't really thought about how to go about it. And of course, Instagram helps make everything more visual nowadays. That's great, but it's very short form. And so I just sort of put that idea slightly on the back burner and thought, I'll come back to it. And then, as these things sometimes happen, it was just a really lovely lining of the stars. Is I had seen this wonderful company called Curate Academy, who had done online wine courses for all sorts of different things like floristry and lots of cookery and gardening and interior design, and they are beautifully put together. As a really small team, but they will take an expert and they'll break the courses down into sort of 20 or so videos of about 8 minutes each. So when you buy one, and they're usually roughly about £80 or something, you can then watch each one whenever you like, and you can watch them as many times as you like. So the idea with when they came to me saying, how about doing a wine one, I was so happy, because I basically, when we had the first planning meeting and they said, okay, we're going to have to really work out how we frame it. And so I just said, actually, I'm just going to send you this book I wrote. I mean, they knew about the book, obviously, but I said, just have a look at that and see whether that works in terms of just breaking down the chapters that way. And so essentially that's what we did, which was wonderful. So of course the structure was all there. It was then just putting it into video format rather than the written word. So we did the whole thing unscripted. It was honestly just Josh, the director, would sit behind his camera. He'd feed me a question and then I'd talk about it. So we knew roughly what we'd be talking about, but we wouldn't know exactly how it would come out. But I quickly decided that's the way I've always done television anyway. I don't do stuff where I look at a camera and read words. I normally just get to talk to the person next to me about wine. And so that's where I'm most comfortable, is when I can just talk and react to the questions that are being asked as well. So that's how we did it, and it was a fantastic experience. I really, really loved it. I was so happy with the results, and I've had some lovely feedback about it as well from people who have bought the course, and then they, especially really lovely women who bought it, and then each evening, a couple of times a week, they would sit there with a glass of wine and just watch it before they watch whatever else they're doing, or they'd watch it whilst they were, pottering in the kitchen or whatever they were doing. And learning with a glass of wine in your hand is definitely the best way to do it.
Oh, completely, completely. And I think this is why everything you do appeals to me so much, because it is exactly as you said, unscripted. Anyone who listens to my podcast knows that I'm pretty unscripted myself. But I think that's the way to really stay honest. I always admit if I don't know something, I'll find you the answer if I can't answer your question. But it's a very different method of wine education, and even education seems a too formal word here, wine information, without having a textbook, a language that is required, certain words that must be used. I think our world is moving away from that, and we have to be aware of that as people in wine ourselves. And you are super aware of that, so it's really lovely to chat to you about it. And I just, before I let you go, because it's going to be painful to let you go, where do you see the Knackered Mother, quote unquote, brand heading in the future? I saw a quote from you where you said someday you're going to change it into Knackered Granny, but I doubt that's happening anytime soon. So, aside from the new fiction book, what have you got in mind, coming forward? What's coming up in the next year or two?
Well, I think the way I've always approached what's happening here is for the opportunities that come my way, I always try, and the way I've approached it in the past is, if an opportunity comes up and I think it appeals to me, then I will just absolutely go for it. So the whole television thing happened because someone somewhere, a researcher, saw the book. Oh no, she'd seen, that's right. I had a wine column in a newspaper, and so she got in touch with me via the blog to say, would I go and be a wine expert on television? And this was about 10 years ago as well. And I'd never done television before, apart from some media training when I was at Tesco, but that was, a long time ago. Certainly had never set out to do it. But, it's lovely. The lovely thing about being older is you get to the stage where you think, what's the worst that can happen? And you just do it anyway. And so...
Absolutely. Fearlessness comes into play for sure.
And so now I've had this amazing 10 years, really, where I've done some of the most fun work I've ever done in wine on television. And again, I think the thing is to recognize that there are some things that you're in control of and some things that you're not. And I will only be on television for as long as somebody wants me to be there. At any stage, the format could change, the people in charge can change, and suddenly it's not there anymore. And I'm so happy with that. I think I'll enjoy every second that I'm doing it. But when it's somebody else's turn, I will be thrilled for them too. So I'll just enjoy this bit. But I guess when you're saying what's the next bit, at the moment I write the fiction in my spare time. So I feel like I've got that to look forward to. So when these other things stop happening, I'm not going to sit there and think, oh God, what am I going to do now? I think I'm hoping that I'll be like, brilliant, now I've got more time to write, because at the moment I always struggle to carve out time to do that writing. But I look forward to having time when I can do that. I mean, the other thing that's happened that has just been completely unexpected was I met a friend via blogging, again, 10 years ago, and she and I started doing virtual wine tastings during lockdown on Instagram. And her name's Kat Farmer, and she and I now do, we've just taken Wine Time, we call it Wine Time Live, we're about to take it on tour. So instead of doing it virtually, we are going round, there's a lovely restaurant chain here called Cote, and we're going to different venues of theirs around the country. And we did our first event in London last month, I think it was. We had 80 women who came. Most came with friends, some came on their own, and they come and they have an evening of wine tasting, as many snacks as we can throw at them, lots of cheese, because we all love wine and cheese. And it's educational, but we just want to bring people together over a glass of wine. And from the feedback we've had from the first few events, this to me, I'm really excited about this, because I think this is something that I would love to do a lot more of, because this is taking what I've done virtually for the last 10 years and it's doing it face to face with people. And I love that.
That is fantastic. And I have to say, Coat was a great choice. I'm a great fan of Coat. As you say, they're a chain.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah, they're a chain, but they're a step above your average chain. And they're available in some really good cities. I hope you'll get to roll this out to women all across the UK. If you ever need a partner in crime for Italian wine, you just let me know. But
oh, I will,
yeah.
Cynthia.
No, this is fantastic, and I'm glad you're looking to find some more time to write, because your fiction is really fun, really, really fun, and again, well written. So, Knackered Mother's Wine Guide. I hope it keeps getting updated. It's a good one, and I'm really thrilled that you had time for us today. This was such a fun and joyful conversation. Not always the case on Voices, where we talk about a lot of discrimination and things like that. This is really a moment of celebrating women and the way that they can apply joy and support to each other through wine. Super fun.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and remember to tune in next Wednesday when I'll be chatting with another fascinating guest. Italian Wine Podcast is among the leading wine podcasts in the world, and the only one with a daily show. Tune in every day and discover all our different shows. You can find us at ItalianWinePodcast.com, SoundCloud, Spotify, Himalaya, or wherever you get your pods.